Okay, everyone. So this is the second of my world building installments, and the idea of this will be a little bit different to the first. My goal is to kind of give you guys or anyone watching this an idea of what my world will be and how it will function, and then I'm going to get into detail on the different places. So this is going to be an overview of the map that I've devised, and since our last session, I've done a lot of work. If any of you guys, or none of you guys know, I'm actually a map creator, so like a cartographer, so I draw maps for fantasy stories and stuff. So I've drawn a map. I have a really bad photo of it that I can show you guys because it's too big to scan, and I'm using that map to go off in terms of what what this world will be, and then I'm going to get more and more in detail onto the lore and that kind of thing later. So this is the map. I'm not sure if people can see that in detail. I can zoom around and that kind of thing. And if you look really close here, this country here, this was the country that we worked on last time. This is how it was realized on the map. So I'm going to break down the map, and this is obviously not the greatest image, but I'm going to break down the map and give you a rough idea of what we're working on in terms of the map of the world. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail later. So we'll go from the top to the bottom. Oh, one thing I should point out is this world is actually the idea is that if we scroll down, I have work on this. The idea is that the planet Croesus is the only habited planet in the Calirial solar system, Calirion being the star, and Croesus is in fixed orbit. So one face of Croesus, which is our planet where all of this takes place on, is always facing the sun, and the other face is always facing away from the sun, which means the further north you get, the darker it gets until no life can exist, and the further south you get, the hotter it gets until no life can exist. So Croesus exists, or all life on Croesus exists as a sort of habitable band around the planet, if that makes sense. I can So you have the planet. We don't want rubber. You have the planet which exists like this, and you have the sun here, and you have on this half of the planet you have always sunlight. So this is too hot to have life exist on it. This is like a molten surface. And then because the sun is always facing from this direction, we've got this side of the planet all in shadow. So this is too cold, too black to support life. And then this band here, this strip along here, this is where all the life exists on our planet. So our map might be a section that big of the strip. And all the happenings on our map, everything that goes on, all happens because like all of that happens on this strip, and people who've traveled north have just found a pitch black frozen wilderness where no one can exist, just frozen hellscape. And people who traveled south, eventually the ocean turns to steam and the world becomes fire and etc. There are legends about it, but obviously no one's been there because you'd die. Moving back, the way our map exists at the moment is it's a section of the band on the planet surface, and I'll just break down the different countries. So up north here, we have, this is called the Cold Lands, this strip, and this sort of backs onto the frozen wastes that last forever. We have a bunch of ruined cities up here, which were home to the old Ice Kings, and the Ice Kings existed in a time when maybe the Earth's axis was, or the planet's axis was maybe a little bit different, and it could support life a little further. And with the freezing, all their great empires have been deserted, but there's maybe 7 or 8 cities, monolithic, massive cities carved from ice. Now the only people who live here are small sort of Inuit type people who live on these islands. Moving along, you also have, this is called the Gate to the North, or the Gate of Winter, I think. And this is an ocean channel with thermal activity in it, which keeps it melted and the further north you go, the more frozen it is. It's kind of the gate to some like awful frozen north no one's explored. Across here, you have this mountain range keeps some of the cold at bay here. So you have Viking-esque people, the Bjortor Peninsula, which is sort of Vikings without the boats that live here. Moving along, you have the Isles of the Goliath, and these islands are the only place where the men who used to live in the Cold Kingdom still live. Moving down, you have a bunch of northern kingdoms here, that kind of thing, island nations, that sort of thing. You have over here, this is AM, this is kind of similar to Asia, but you have this massive grassy wasteland with this huge river running through it with a strange race of people who I'll get into later when I talk about races. You have Eisenkai, which is maybe similar to Japan. It's some sort of Asian nation. No, it's its own thing. And this is this big Asian superpower. And then you also have the lands of the River Lords, which are here inside all these rivers that flow together to make up this river here. And the lands of the River Lords are ruled by these men who take orders from a race of like mind-controlling giants in the mountains. I'll get into that later. This sort of area is all sort of very like semi-tropical grassland, forest, that kind of thing. Getting more boreal up here, more tigers, more snow. This is all up north. This is all frozen. The white symbolizes snow. Further down, you have the deserts and dry grasses of the Zanaxari. The Zanaxari are a horse people who live in this desert because they're the only ones who know where the wells are. They have these sacred seas. And moving down here, you also have the desert kingdom of Kynaript, which is kind of like Egypt, but maybe a little bit different. Over the mountains, called the Ring of the World, you have these deep jungles where different jungle clans exist, kind of Mayan in nature. Then over here, you have like a China analog, almost like, I called it Yin, and the people of Yin have like jet black skin, red eyes, they're really interesting. So you have down here, then you also have Gom, which is this sort of strange sickness-filled jungle island down here. Moving down, we have Meridanus, which is, I'm Australian, if you can't tell from my voice, and Meridanus is the Australia analog, which I find really interesting. You can kind of see the borrowed shape. So they have, and this is the ruins of a land bridge, which maybe used to connect up into the bottom of a Yem. And Meridanus, that's all jungle, grassland, and desert, and the people there are really strange. There's like a race of sort of blind cavemen that live under the mountains, borrowed from Lovecraft a bit with some of the creatures that live in these islands and the ruins on that. Moving across and up, we have this continent here, which is called Toom. Toom is Africa, kind of. So up the top, you have this strange race of sort of half fish people bound to this inland sea called the Spellbound Sea. Down, you have these kind of half-breeds of them called the Mowu, who live in this massive flooded marshland. And they have like webbed hands and feet. You have this island, which is filled with these people who like get drugged up on this fruit. You have like a strange, like another race that lives in this mesa here. The lands of the Impala, which are all these different sort of African-style clans, and then these cursed jungles of Toom, which are these terrible dark green jungles with the city of red mist in them, which I'll get into later. A couple of islands off there. The Tadiyari Islands, which are maybe Malaysia or New Guinea, somewhere like that. Moving up here, these are the centers of civilization. You have, from top to bottom, you have Caria, which is Europe. So that's got Bavosa, which is sort of almost like Italy. You've got like Sweden and Russia up top. You've got England. And then we have Knocknamabe, which is Ireland, which is the first place we went over. Knocknamabe, I've now named it Knocknamabe. And that is Ireland, yeah. Moving down, you have these free city-states, almost like the Mediterranean kind of sea going on here. You have Al-Bayash, which is a desert kingdom. And you have these, a bunch of different city-states all through here, down to the grasses of the Musyai, which are these sort of nomadic people. Here we have a shattered archipelago, which used to form a land bridge, and this archipelago is home to the ruins of some lost races, civilizations. Again, I'll get into that when I talk about the races in my world. Here we have a sort of lost jungle peninsula full of unknown whatsy whats. These islands are merchant cities. That's what I've got so far, really rough going over the world. I haven't gone into any detail. I mean, this document's 20,000 words, and I've covered Tum and Meridanus, I think, and a little bit of Caria. But yeah, that's basically what we're working with. You're working with these continents, for the most part, being civilized, being divided into kingdoms, and Yem is in kingdoms. And I guess the Bioto Peninsula. And down here with Tum and Meridanus, you have a much more tribal lifestyle, much more tribal means of living. The planet, or this section of world, this is the map we're going to be working within when it comes to designing this fantasy world. And now that I've given a breakdown, I think next time I'll give an explanation of how I designed this world, what my process was to creating it, and why I designed it in a certain way, the things I wanted to include, the themes that I wanted to be prevalent. I'll talk about, I'm no geographist, I'm no geography master, geographer, but I'll also talk about geography and how that affected my world design and my understanding of geography as far as I've read to do with this. I'll talk about my ideas for migration patterns for humans and how they've moved. I think humans originated here and how they traveled across the rest of the world, how they came to be in all these places. And probably once we've done that, we might get into talking about magic in the setting, or maybe the different races that exist within the setting. If anyone has any preference, let me know. Not sure if anyone watches these, but yeah. Thank you so much for listening and watching if you got through this convoluted thing. If you have any tips to help me improve, because I'm totally new to this, then please do that. Also, leave a like or a comment if anyone sees this, because that'd be awesome. Really appreciate it. And yeah, catch you guys later. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye.